Hello, everyone. Good day, and welcome to the second part of our Media in the 21st Century lesson. And let's proceed where we left off. So, let's start with a discussion about the relational uses of technology and media. This section of the lesson dictates that individuals do not use technology and media. Rather, relators, that's the term that we're working with, use technology and media. Now, relators are people who tell a story. A narrator, they have something to say. That is why they're using technology and media. Because let's remember our communication models. If Laswell's model is very linear and Shannon Weaver's model now indicates a return of the message through feedback, with the transactional and interactive model of communication, they noted that the speaker is also the encoder. Now, we are not merely users, but we are also receivers. When we don't merely consume, we also create. So your use of technology and media is always done in the context of relationships. Now, it can be your relationship with the person on the other end of the screen. It can be your relationship with the people that you're connecting with through media, or it can be your relationship with media itself. Now, the first point about the relational uses of technology and media is that the usage is always a shared relational activity. We use media for different specific relational reasons. So why I use media is very different from why you use media, but the common ground there is that we use it for relational reasons. Now, most technologies enable interactions to take place. If you want to talk to your friend and they're in the next room over, you can just pull out your phone, message them in Messenger, or message them in any social media app that has the messaging feature. You can also call them if you want. Now, most of the time, because of the digital and electronic means of technology and its capabilities, these technologies are usually the actual basis for interaction. For most part, you can be friends with someone, but most of your interaction is through digital and electronic means. You use media to facilitate your entire relationship. Even when people are not in the same location, a sense of connection still exists through shared experience with technology and media. That's why online cultures are formed. Now, in the case of television, sometimes millions and millions of people are watching the same materials as you exactly at the same time. If you guys are tuning in to a certain telenovela, it's very possible all around the world you are watching the same thing with different people. It is a relational activity. And because of that, maybe you can go online and find people with the same interest. The use of technology and media as a shared relational activity enables people to accomplish certain relational needs. So let's use the time of the pandemic as a good example. Kasi 'di ba we were all very limited to stay within our houses. We were limited to our movement was limited, and so we couldn't actually gather with people. But through technology and media, we can find a sense of connection with people, or maybe we can even form a parasocial relationship with the people in the media we are consuming. Of course, there that is a different discussion in itself, but it's always a thing to acknowledge that media allows us to feel a connection, even if it's physically not there, even if it's technically a screen on a device. Next is that technology and media inform people about relationships. Now, this does not mean that going to Facebook allows you to see who's dating who and who broke up with who. When we say technology and media inform people about relationships, it's about media informing people about what relationships are supposed to look like or how relationships actually go about or the different types of relationships. A lot of people, especially those who are quite sheltered, who probably haven't seen a lot of the world or have very limited interactions with other types of people outside of their friend group, they probably have a very limited idea on how relationships actually are. So if you grew up in a relationship where your father is let's say the homemaker, and your mother is the one who works, seeing people in real life wherein the father is the one who always works and the mother is the homemaker might be a surprise for you. You can use media to bridge that information gap, so to speak. Because a lot of people actually base their understanding of relationships through how media presents it. Even if you haven't seen that in real life, because you've seen it in media, you are now at least a bit aware that that type of relationship does exist. Books, magazines, newspapers, internet, and a lot of other media programs feature both fictional and real social and personal relationships. So, a variety of sources does eventually inform your understanding about relationships, and you can compare the information you gain. Because remember, we are not passive consumers. Just because we've seen it doesn't mean we then fully understand it. We process it first. So there is a caveat when it comes to technology and media informing people about relationships. And that's this little thing, this little issue in the media industry, which is misrepresentation or underrepresentation. A lot of media representations of relationships provide information about relational roles and demographic characteristics. In a heteronormative society, then it's very much expected that a lot of the relationships in media are heteronormative. It would be between a man and a woman. Media or stories about a man and a woman and a woman will not be presented properly or will not be represented properly. And it is because media usually works with the general public, or it works within the understanding of the general public. That is why you see male and male relationships assuming the feminine masculine roles. They always assume that there's a woman in the relationship or a man in the relationship because it is framing the heteronormative relationship mold with two men, completely disregarding that relationships between two men have a completely different dynamic from the relationship between a man and a woman. And at the same time, the relationship between a man and a woman is very much different from with the relationship of a woman and a woman. Relationships depicted on television are not always realistic. Because, of course, let's remember, they're trying to sell their show. They're trying to get products, or they're trying to get sponsors, advertisers, consumers to consume their product. Now, if they don't offer this idealized view, if they show something that can be challenging or that can go against what a lot of people are, well, are standing for, then they will lose their viewership, they will lose their sponsors. So it's very common to assume that media will present the ideas of the general public, or at least the ideas of the people who are paying them to stay on. That is why us, the people, have the ability to compare media depictions of relationships with the relationships we actually observe or enacted in our physical lives. But nonetheless, media can create unrealistic expectations and beliefs about how relationships should look like. So, for example, you have been, I am a victim of this. Maybe you've read stories, maybe you've read books wherein a relationship is so healthy, so, like, let's say they coordinate so well that you start to think, if my relationship isn't like this, then it's not the relationship. It's either this or nothing. You start having that expectation. That's a very unrealistic expectation. Because remember, we are all different individuals. We have our own responsibilities. If you cannot accept your partner, or rather, if you cannot date your partner for the person that they are, rather than the relationship they can offer, then I think you need to reconsider. I think you need to take a step back and reevaluate why you're actually dating that person. Are you dating them because you think they can give you the ideal relationship that you saw on film, you saw on TV? Or are you dating them because of them, because of the relationship? So that is why we have to be critical of the media that we consume and how it represents certain depictions. Next, technology and media are used in everyday talk. Now, let me ask you, when was the last time you and your friend talked about a movie or talked about a certain, let's say, musical, a certain song? Let's try to evaluate ourselves. If you are to catch yourself whenever you try to start a topic, among the topics that you started, like among the top conversations you started, how many of those were started because you wanted to talk about media, to talk about technology, or you're using technology to talk to them? You're using it to do everyday talk. Now, some people would say, "Ma'am, I'm not into small talk. I'd rather discuss things with people that actually make sense." Well, sometimes doing small talk is actually good for your mental health and maybe emotional health because you are providing bids to people to, create a relationship. And most of the time, those relationship bids, those conversational bids that you invite people into, are revolved around shared media or shared media consumptions. Technology and media usually provide the basis of conversations in social and personal relationships. In fact, reports have indicated that anywhere from 10.5% to half of all conversations involve media content to some extent. So, who knows? Maybe at school, once you see your classmates or what, maybe in the downtime when you're still waiting for your teacher, try to catch yourself on the type of topics that you suddenly talk about. Maybe you guys are talking about subjects. Maybe you guys are talking about an assignment. And then eventually, you guys started talking about this one funny book one of your friends read. So even if it's a very conservative estimate, that number should tell you something about how media eventually integrated itself in amongst our frequent topic. Now, we are here to discuss the types of media that take up most people's time. Personally, if I actually if I evaluate myself, I can say that I use the internet most. Aside from being an instructor, of course, I will have to be on the internet. I have to make my lessons. I have to do my actual work. But at the same time, even my interest is based on the internet. I play games. I watch videos. I talk to my friends. This coincides with the study in 2019 by Zenith Media Consumption Report that media attention is being dominated by the internet. Now, this conclusion was made in 2019, and they have also guessed, or they inferred that the trend of internet consumption will only increase over the next 2 years. It has been 5 years since this report, and I can say that everything is in the internet at this point. I tried to start reading physical books again, and I found myself buying. I don't know if you guys know this, The Fall of the House of Usher. It's a show. It's a show on Netflix. I love it. You guys should probably watch it if you're into Edgar Allan Poe. I saw the book first. I saw that it was on Netflix, and I tried to convince myself this will be the time where I read the book first and then I watch the movie. Because back then in high school, I was a very book first, movie next type of student. But as I grew older, I suddenly found like less time and no money to actually buy the books. So I had to resort to watching the film. Now, since I can afford the book, I try to convince myself I'm going to start reading. I'm going to go back into reading. I'm going to stop relying so much on film on the internet. Because at least this one I can bring around without relying on a battery. Long story short, I finished the entire Fall of the House of Usher while the book was still in its plastic wrap. So, honestly, that's on me. That's on me and my attention span. But that actually coincided that attention span, our tendency to focus on the internet, coincides with the prediction of the Zenith Media Consumption Report. Now, how about you guys? Try to think about the type of media that takes up most of your time. Are you a book person? Do you really read, do you take the time to disconnect and read books, journal, maybe what other things? Maybe listen to the radio. Or are you going to confess, ma'am, I am worse than you. I am digital native through and through. When I wake up, internet. When I go to sleep, internet. Back then, back in 2019, it was forecasted that by 2021, people will spend 170 minutes daily on the internet. At most, I'm pretty sure a lot of us spend more than 5 hours on the internet at this point, especially with the digital setup MCM has. So even in academics, you guys are on the internet. Yeah, I actually I got it wrong. By 2021, it was actually estimated that people would spend 192 minutes per day. Still, rookie numbers. Specifically, Zena found that this is being driven by consumers increasing the time they spend on their internet connected mobile devices. So sometimes it's not about being actively on the internet. It's because our mobile devices, the things that we connect to the internet with, they are around us almost every time. So even on the downtimes, let's say you're waiting for your turn at the line in 7-Eleven. Rather, while waiting for your turn in front of the cashier, you're probably scrolling on Facebook. That already increases your minutes or your usage of the internet in the day. Consumers worldwide will increase the time they spend with mobile internet to 800 hours this year alone. Now, that is very overwhelming, but who knows if we do the math, maybe it's something manageable. But I do hope you guys don't make it a goal. Let's try to cut back on our overconsumption because internet addiction is an actual problem, it's an actual issue that we have to realize at some point. It shows that internet really is dominating consumptions. Back in 2011, the usage of newspapers, it's still going strong. If anything, if you look at the graph, it's going consistently. So newspapers still established their roles or their function in society. Meanwhile, magazines, their usage is dwindling fast. If you look at the internet, we could see that numbers are really going higher and higher. And it seems like at this point, if we follow the trend, in 2024, we are probably closing 250. So just a quick reminder, the statistics, they are rooted or they are focused in the US, though it might ring true to some extent to here in the Philippines. So the most common media being consumed or being used in the US are the digital video content. So these are the ones that are being downloaded or streamed. So very likely YouTube, Netflix. Next are the digital music content. So Spotify, probably still YouTube. Next is TV. So the TV media industry, it's still booming in the US, or at least back in 2019. Next is the radio at 71%. And then it also included videos on hard copies such as DVD and Blu-ray. So if you guys still have a DVD or a CD player at home, then that's good. Like there are moments where the internet when the internet is down, so at least you still have a source of entertainment, and at the same time there are different types of media that are only in Blu-ray or in CD. So it's good to have a way to access those types of media. Let's end the part 2 here. In the next video, we will discuss the changing media throughout history. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to message me in Teams, and I will see you guys in the next video.